Well, I felt like the first thing I did this morning was tweet about the gloominess outside today, and a lot of people are talking about Twitter. The world's richest man expanding his corporate portfolio, Elon Musk, taking the helm at Twitter for $54 a share. The founder of SpaceX and Tesla taking the company private and aiming to relax content restrictions in the name of free speech. But is that really what is truly in store for the social media giant? And we do say there are a lot of unanswered questions here. And for the answer to the question of what's next, let's bring in digital business executive Seth Schachter. Good to see you, Seth. Good morning.
Great to be here. Good morning.
So the biggest, if this goes through, if shareholders say this is a go and a done deal, the biggest changes that we might see, or the biggest impact, I guess, of Elon Musk buying Twitter would be what, in your opinion?
In my opinion, if they really start to change what I'd call the moderation of the service, basically, and Musk has made a lot of noise around free speech, and if it really went to the extreme and they just pulled off, if you will, all the sort of moderation techniques that not just Twitter, but all of even the bigger platforms that we all know use, that could be kind of dystopian and really change the thing a lot and make it somewhat of a free-for-all. I honestly don't think that'll actually happen so radically, but that would probably be the very biggest one out there. I mean, there is a Twitter subscription service. It's called Twitter Blue, and he's got a lot of interesting ideas actually to change it as a business, and probably building out the subscription piece of it would probably be something that you'd see as well, that I think could change the game a little bit in terms of adding certain product features if you're a subscriber, like an edit button. But I think these things are going to take a little bit of time. Not only is there approval, it's a pretty big technology platform, and there's engineers and lots of technical issues involved. So I don't think these things will happen tomorrow. But as a private vehicle, which is what I think Twitter is probably better positioned as, I think it's a really smart move that's being made, actually, and it could have pretty positive effects for the service.
As a private vehicle, it's interesting, and you were talking about the subscription service, you got to find a way to still make money for the private entity. And if they do go to a subscription service, a lot of people might say, well, is it really free speech if we have to pay for the privilege of having it?
It'll definitely be less people using it, whether they have the same degree of free speech or not. I think is a different, a little bit of a different question. A lot of these services have what are called freemium models, where they, allow some degree of free usage, and then they'll charge for certain features. And he's already started making noise about, some of these features like an edit button, or, they're going to really wage war on bots and robots, and, try and have some degree of human identification, which I think is an extremely positive thing. But yeah, usually when you kind of filter the free from the paid, there's unquestionably, say, maybe 10% of the people, 5% of the people actually sign up and pay. And I mean, I think that's a little different than free speech, but I do think it'll reduce the number of people that actually use it. If you look out at their other services, there's one called Truth Social, there's one called Getter, that are some that have made quite a bit of noise around being environments for free speech. And they're all pretty small, as paid subscription services. So I think it'll certainly reduce the number of users out there.
It's interesting, and I'm curious what your just gut feeling is moving forward now when you talk about if usership drops, and we know how social media, just like politics or anything else, it's very polarizing. And if you have people now who might be excited about more of the taking the restraints off, you might have other people that say, I didn't go here to get frustrated every day by hearing everybody give their opinion, whether it's justified or not, or whether it's valid or not. Do you think overall, as we look a year, 2 years down the road, Twitter will decrease in size or grow?
It's a great question. I actually think it would grow if any of these changes incrementally make it sort of a more positive user experience. So, I mean, the paid component of it, it's a curiosity to me. And for those of us who worked in digital business for a long time, I go way back even to the days of AOL back there in DC where I started. Advertising is just an important piece of the business. I think it was how they thought they could make money and grow early on. There's a lot of other models that are out there, but this is a small service compared to, Facebook or TikTok, which are, I think, really the ones that are moving the needle right now. So in my view, there's a lot of noise around something that has always needed to be cleaned up a little bit. So yes, I do think it'll grow, but I don't know if this, if it's going to be such a game changer that you'll see it at the same league as a Facebook or as TikTok, actually.
Yeah, like a lot of tech, there's still a lot of layers of unknown there. Seth, I have a bunch of AOL CDs that I've been holding on to. Now I know where to send them. I'll send them your way. You can have them.
Please.
Thanks for joining us this morning.